Welcome to this week's episode of the Dad's Live podcast. I'm your host, Sean Flack 2.0. And as always, welcome to the show. All right, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the topic of the day is going to be dads. Some cool ones. So first and foremost, I just want to let you guys know that it's not always about just being a parent. It's about doing things that dads love. So we're going to change up a little bit versus what's been going on with the last couple episodes. So we are going to be talking about some awesome dads, awesome fictional dads from video games, movies, etc. And there was a big list, but I only picked like the top 3, 4 that I liked. So we'll be talking about that. We're going to go ahead and before we get into that, we're going to start off with what's new and good. So what is new and good with me this week? Well, first of all, I would always love to hear what's new and good from you. So, look me up on Twitter at Sean Flack. I will say the first thing that is new and good with me is the website has been refreshed. I don't want to say rebranded, but it definitely got a totally new look. So check out the new website, SeanFlack.com. I'm pretty sure if you're up to this episode, you've been there before. And that has links to everything. So that does have links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Well, not really Instagram. Instagram's on there. But anyway, fresh new look on the website. That's definitely a positive, definitely something new. Go ahead and check that out. Always appreciate all the support that goes over there. So got a chance to redo the website, so that's awesome. Unfortunately, my blogs did not come over, so I have to slowly but surely mitigate them over to the new website. So that's probably why they went from like 20 blogs to 5 or 6. And I'm slowly but surely backlogging everything and bringing everything over so that it is available for you guys to check out any of the older blogs. But yeah, so that's definitely something new and good. And it's a couple things. My longtime friend, 20 years now. She was in the Army, or she's in the Army still. She actually came out. We're able to hang out. We picked her up from the airport. I had to drop her off so she could do her Army stuff. But this past week, I was able to sit down and have lunch with her. So that's always awesome, catching up with good friends. And I would have to say she's definitely like an example of, long-term friendship. Like, I went to her wedding. She went to my wedding. She lives on the other side of the country. We still talk, chop it up. Again, she's out here for the service, but it was awesome just to have her out here, being able to sit down, have lunch, exchange stories, and then like we live around the corner from her. So that was super exciting. And then, of course, last but not least, I went from PlayStation, and if you read my latest blog on the website, I went from PlayStation, got rid of all my PlayStation stuff, jumped over to the Xbox, and So the next big announcement would be now I am getting into streaming on Mixer through the Xbox. So that's also something new and exciting and fun. Like in the blog, if you're reading the blog before listening to this episode, or if you haven't, go ahead and check it out. I want to talk about my experience, so I'll talk about that in the next section. But I definitely jumped from PlayStation into Xbox, so that was actually pretty awesome. So yeah, that's basically what's new and good with me this week. I definitely want to hear what's new and good with you. Go to the website, hook up with me from there on Facebook, Twitter. You could actually there's a chat box on the website that you could hit me up there, or you could fill out the little form, send me a little message. Oh, and I also have a new email, Dad Life. Or is it Dad's Life? I think it's Dad's Life at SeanFlag.com. So you can hit me that way too. So that's actually pretty cool. So again, I would like to hear what's new and good with you guys. Always love hearing, everybody up there doing the best they can. Maybe, what you share about what's new and good could kind of bring somebody out their little funk and be like, what, that is actually new and good. That's cool. And, now I'm going to have a better day just knowing that, other people out there doing positive things, having good days, and then sharing it out there. So So again, hit me up on the different platforms, and then I'll definitely share it on the next episode. All right. Going right into today's topic, I want to talk about going over from PlayStation to Xbox and the experience that I'm having. And then talk about some cool dads based upon this. So I will say when I swapped over, of course, I had to go ahead and get the okay from the wife to make sure she was okay because the PlayStation was used to stream all the kids, Netflix, YouTube, Amazon Prime. So I got the go from her, she was like, I don't care as long as I still could do what I can do. And so I went ahead and did some research. I ended up getting an Xbox One S and not an X because I was able to trade everything in and use that store credit to just get a brand new system without having to pay like an additional $250 to get an X. So again, just want to dabble back into Xbox. The first thing that was so cool since I've had an Xbox 360, all of my Xbox 360 digital downloads were readily available once I hooked up the Xbox One S up to my account. And I thought that was like the coolest thing. So if you did have an Xbox 360 before and you switched to PlayStation and you go back, or maybe you went from there and you're going to keep your PlayStation, you're going to get a 360, expect to have your digital downloads that are backwards compatible with the Xbox One S, because there was a couple that I did not get back downloaded. But and then so having those readily available, and they're upscaled because I thought they would be super pixelated. They're upscaled, so they're really good on the TV. So that was definitely a plus. And then I did sign up for the Ultimate Game Pass, which at the time was $2 for your first 2 months, and then it's $14.99 a month after that. Totally worth it. It does include your Xbox Gold, your Live Gold, so you get the voice chat on multiplayer, being able to stream your Netflix and all that stuff. And then of course it comes with the Ultimate Game, or the Game Pass, which is basically their version of PlayStation Now, I want to say, where they have a gang of libraries of games that you could play, and then all the premier Xbox games come available on the release date. So that is actually pretty cool. So not only did I get my older games, I'm able to sign up for this Ultimate Game Pass that not only gives me access to older games, but it also gives me like all the AAA games, so all the Halo games, all the Gears of Wars games, which big Gears fan, and that was one of my deciding factors of going back. I played through Gears 1 through 3, never got into 4 and 5, and I was like, I want to play those games. So them being included in that Game Pass, definitely another plus. The next thing I'd say is like the UI. I thought the UI on the Xbox was a whole lot more complicated than the PlayStation, but in fact, it's actually has a whole lot more features. So definitely have to say I'm really, really surprised about how the Xbox. Sorry for the creaking chair. Gotta get a new chair. Either that or I gotta lose weight. Well, maybe I should lose weight and get a new chair. Okay, anyway, sorry about that stuff in the background if you could hear it. But the UI is definitely something that I really enjoy, especially I thought it was really convoluted. Once you kind of get your way around how it works, it actually is a little bit more intuitive, and you can do a whole lot more using that than you could the actual PlayStation UI. So again, another positive. So yeah, all in all, I really actually am glad that I swapped from PlayStation. I'm a big PlayStation fan. Like, PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 had the 4. You got all the good exclusives, Spider-Man, God of War, just all these great games that are on there that I didn't play. So that kind of segues into I really wasn't excited about the PlayStation 4 and what it had coming out. And a lot of games that I were playing were actually cross-platform. So playing games like Call of Duty or like the Mass Effect, that was actually a Xbox only game for the longest time. I think they released it for PlayStation. But anyway, a lot of the games I was into playing are on the Xbox, and I'm just excited that I moved back to the Xbox. And at first it was a little overwhelming, but then as I'm using it more and more, I'm actually really excited about it. And then that kind of goes into that big announcement about me going to Mixer and starting to getting into streaming. So from the UI and the controls, you could go right into broadcast and broadcast right on the Mixer, which is actually really, really cool. And the idea is to actually take the podcast that you're listening to now, adding a visual to it, and shooting it live on Mixer, i.e., like some of my other podcasts that I listen to. So, yes, I'm stealing your idea, but it is a great idea. So, yeah, I'm excited about getting into that. Now, there's a couple things I have to do to the computer because my streams right now suck. The video quality on them, they're always pixelated. I even upgraded the internet, hoping that would fix it. But it looks like the best thing I'm going to have to do is do some upgrades to the PC in order to be able to stream the Xbox through the PC to Mixer. But it's fun. Streaming is fun, especially on Mixer. You could co-stream. So again, another positive for the Xbox. So yeah, I got nothing but positive things to say about this Xbox, and I'm excited. It's kind of getting me into that. Right now, I actually follow people on Twitch. I have a Twitch account. If I stream from the Xbox directly to Twitch, the stream actually comes out really decent. So actually, that's what I'm doing right now. In the meantime, while I wait for upgrading the computer to, for the upgrades to the computer to come. So I'm not going to say, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Mixer right now, because those aren't really fleshed out, but I'm definitely going in that direction. Hopefully being able to bring you more content and more ways to consume the content that I'm creating. So again, big ups to Xbox. Really excited that I made that jump. And obviously the wife doesn't care, but it does do what we need to do for the kids. And yeah, got nothing but positive things to say. Okay, so getting back, before we get into our, what was that noise? Before we get into our next segment, I'm going to take time right now to pause it. And we're going to roll that mid-episode sponsorship right now. Okay, back to the show. So, in playing these games, so switching from PlayStation into Xbox kind of put me in this weird situation, right? That brought me into this next topic. Sorry, I had to mute the mic there because I had to come out with this crazy cough. Anyway, so we're going to talk about fictional dads, and so let's talk about video games. Let's talk about some characters in these video games. So I decided to pick 3 with a 4th honorable mention. Is about some of the cool dads that you see in movie, and I think 2 are movies and 2 are video games. So not any particular order. So let's start off with a little bit of a backstory. I told one of my coworkers, "Hey, I switched from Xbox or from PlayStation to Xbox," and he's like, "Yeah, but what about all these cool games or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't really play those games." So he said specifically, I tried to get into Spider-Man, could not really get into that, but then he did say God of War. And so he told me about the scene in God of War, and he was like, "Man, you totally missed it, blah, blah, blah." And, you'd be super juiced if you watched it. You played through God of Wars 1 through 3. Check it out. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me check it out. So the first dad we're going to talk about is Kratos from God of War 4. Wow. I watched. And so, of course, I don't have a PlayStation anymore, but I wanted to see this scene. So I went on YouTube and found an 8-hour video about the guy playing through the game. It's a full walkthrough. He cut up a lot of stuff as far as the grinding and, cut down all the boss fights to kind of compress it. But Kratos from God of War, Jesus mother effing wow. You play through the first 3 games and you're like, okay, the 4th game throws you for a loop. One hell of a story. Gameplay looks great. Graphics look great. The story was crazy. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Don't listen to what I'm about to say for the next 30 seconds. But the ending to me, and again, spoiler alert, you're not listening? Okay, good. It sucked. I spent 8 hours watching Kratos be the baddest dad on the planet with Atreus and going through and like teaching him all these things and like really being hard on him and figuring, kind of going through some emotional building and emotional scarring and, showing him how to be a man and all these things and opening up to him and all this stuff. And then you get to the end and you're like, man, this is so cool. You thought you got to the end, but that ain't the end. That's halfway. You finally get to the very, very end. And it's just like, what? And it's the same feeling that I had when I watched Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. I did not know it was a trilogy, and they kept it open-ended, and I was so mad because I wanted to end. That's how God of War ended. You got there, you did your business, and you went back down the mountain, and that was it. And you're like, wait a minute, I did all this. I watched an 8-hour stream. For that, I had to go into the Discord and be like, look, who played this game? I was upset. Anyway, Kratos God of War 4. Check it out. Play the game. Watch that stream or watch a stream. Dad of the Year. Badass Dad of the Year. So switching over, he told me to go check it out. So I went to go check it out. I'm glad I did. Great story. One hell of a dad. Did not see that coming from Kratos, the great of war, the God of War, and it really surprised me, and I was super juiced about it. So that's one, and then I'll switch to the movie dad. If you didn't see this one coming, you are not an action movie fan. But Brian Mills from Taken, the first Taken, because the other two were just like cash grabs in my opinion. But Brian Mills, played by Liam Neeson, that's what dads do. Dads got 17 hours of save day babies, and he kills and maims and tracks down these people to save his daughter. Let me just drop the mic. So Brian Mills, Taken, played by Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson, is that how you say his name? Awesome dad. Not too much of a backstory with that, but yeah. So we'll move on to our next dad, which again is a 360 game. Kind of going into going back to playing games. As I was learning how to stream, I decided to let me go pick up some older games and see if some of these older games would help improve the stream, because they weren't so labor intensive, like graphically labor intensive. But Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell Conviction and Splinter Cell Blacklist. That's one hell of a dad. In Conviction, they convince him that his daughter is dead. Come to find out that she's alive, and he goes through the whole game basically trying to help her, save her from all these baddies. And then watch the playthrough of that, because I'm actually playing Blacklist, and I actually beat both games on the 360 originally. So I didn't feel bad about watching the replay on it on Conviction, but I'm playing through Blacklist, and in Blacklist, like throughout all your missions, you go and you call your daughter Sarah in between missions and get cool little updates or whatever, what she's doing and what's going on with her. So Sam Fisher. So those are the top 3 dads that I looked up, and then I went online and I checked them out, and they have like this full top 10 list, and I'm just like, okay, that's your guys' list. I'm just going with these 3. Number 4 is an honorable mention, because we all have those friends, or we are ourselves. We got fur babies. I'm going to throw John Wick on there. I'm going to throw John Wick with badass dad. Even though the dog, it represents his fur baby. His fur baby got killed, and now we got to take down the whole mafia. Mr. Boogeyman got to go kill everybody. So that's what, you took his little fur baby out. He had to go ahead and kill everybody. And so I'm going to credit him to being on this list as well. So the top 3, and then my honorable mention, number 4, John Wick. And that's what's going to bring us into our next segment of. Oh wait, so those are those three. You could go online, you could check these other lists and all these other names that they pulled up. But I'm going to go with those top three. I'm going to end it with John Wick. I want to hear what you guys think. Go ahead and check out those lists on YouTube. You know, they got the guy from like BioShock, and they got who else was on there? The guy from Last of Us, and you know, I didn't play BioShock or The Last of Us, so I can't really, vouch for those guys. But these guys watch the movies, play the games, or at least watch the games. So I'm going to vouch for their credibility for dad. So, that's that dad life stuff right there. So I would like to hear, what is your take on these picks? Go ahead and check it out. Leave any kind of comments wherever you leave them. Hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, SeanFlag.com. What is that? I always say questions, comments, or emotional outbursts on this topic or the other topic, Xbox, PlayStation. Don't forget to hit me up. All right, so talking about John Wick, we're going to transition right into our last segment. The one that I always get excited about the most is Holla at Ya Homie. Holla at me. So, holla at your homie. If you're new to the show, I'm going to be talking about my friends or people that I know that content create. They stream, they do podcasts, they write songs, they rap, they write books, all these things. If you know me and you do something that is content created, I don't care if you make quilts or you scrapbook, or again, you do write books, or you do whatever you do, holla at your homie so that I can put it on a show and we could talk about it, and we could support each other. So this week on Holla at Your Homie, and again, we talked about John Wick, I am talking about LPJ, Hovercraft Joe, and the Sphinx. And those three guys put together on a podcast, the Last Action Podcast. So those three guys. And Last Action Podcast is one of the podcasts that I really, really enjoy from Gamezilla Media. So if you're interested in them, interested in something like that, check them out, GamezillaMedia.com. But we're going to talk about LPJ, Hovercraft Joe, and the Sphinx. And just the great work that they do on the Last Action Podcast. So the Last Action Podcast is a podcast that is on the Gamezilla Media Network. Again, I do support them myself, and I try to listen to them weekly, especially when they're like right now on this sweet spot of every movie that I hold dear. So this last one that he did was John Wick at the time of this recording. So again, go check them out. If you're a action movie fan, you should definitely check them out. They give you a bunch of different trivia, and they do like role reversals, and they do net worths, and give you a bunch of cool little facts. Like, I've learned a lot about the movies. Like, I love movies. You guys know the reason why I'm doing this podcast, because I want to write my own movie. I want to write, direct, and produce my own movie. So they give you all these little tidbits of information and stuff like that. So I really appreciate what they do. So the man in charge, the guy, LPJ, he is actually the brother of Chops. And Chops is also part of the Gamezilla Media Network on a different show. And I'll talk about him when on that show. And actually, I'm going to talk about Chops right now, because I want to say Chops, if you're listening, you're the man. You're the guy. You're the guy. That kind of started it all. Well, besides my brother told me to check you guys out, but you're the guy. So, how I even got to hold the Gamezilla Media thing, and if I've told you the story before, stop me. But you really can't really stop me from telling the story unless you actually pause the podcast. I don't want you to do that. But my brother told me to check these guys out. So I'm listening to The Legend of Retro. Again, we'll talk about that show in another episode. And it stops working. I'm like, what the heck's going on? So I go to Facebook, I shoot them a message, and this guy named Chops messages me back. And he's like, oh, hey, Chops from the show. Everything looks good. Try to refresh. And he's like troubleshooting, whatever. And I'm like, man, these guys, That's some one hell of a customer service. That's really fast. So that just interaction of like, well, hey, I want to check out your show and it's not working on my end. Is there anything we could do? And like, boom, just like that. They're like, oh, well, let me double check. Oh, the RSS feed looks good on our end. Try to refresh. Did that help? Do this. And to me, that interaction automatically, I was like, well, I got to listen to these guys. So anyway, Chops, if you're listening, you're the man. You're the one that started it. You're the one that set the bar of interaction and customer service, which I do. That is why I love you guys. That's why I'm talking about you guys on my show, because you guys inspired me, number one, to do my own podcast, but also the interaction that you guys had on that show and all the other shows as well. So anyway, Chops, you're the man. But we're not here to talk about Chops. We're here to talk about LPJ. So LPJ is Chops' brother. He's the one that came to the concept of the Last Action podcast. I believe he does like the role reversal. And for some reason, I don't know. I want to assume I don't know these guys, like know them, but I want to assume, and maybe LPJ could correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe LPJ went to school for film. I don't know. That's gonna be my assumption. Anyway, you get into Discord, you talk to these guys. That's why I'm talking about it, because I know them. They're my homies. But it seems like, maybe he went to school for film, but he definitely has a lot of information on that. And then, so he's always on every episode, definitely a really cool little personality. Yeah, keeps the show going. Really enjoy that guy. The next one is going to be the Sphinx. The Sphinx was the very first co-host on there, and then he had to leave for a little bit. Because, well, I don't know. You could ask him if you want to know. He had to leave the show for a little bit for whatever reason, and that's when Hovercraft Joe. And at the time, it wasn't Hovercraft Joe. It was just, I want to just say Joe. And it was funny because he had been on other episodes before, and how he got his name is every movie that he had helped them do had a hovercraft in it. And so I want to say through their Discord, they just came up with Hovercraft Joe, and he ran with it. So, yeah, that was actually pretty cool. So when the Sphinx had to leave, Hovercraft Joe kind of came in, filled in, and now they kind of all take turns, except for LPJ. LPJ's on every episode. But they definitely put out some really good movies. They're right now in a really good sweet spot with all the movies that I watched growing up. And I want to say they even did the 5 Deadly Venoms, which has to be my all-time favorite movie. And I want to say LPJ did it because I asked, and I was like, okay, maybe you guys would do this one. I would be really interested about what you guys would think about it, because they haven't done any other kung fu movie like that before. So I thought that was pretty cool. I made a request and they threw it in there. They've gone over a gang of like, Die Hard, Lethal Weapons. I don't think they did Predator. I was going to say that. I don't think they did Predator, but they did a bunch. Now they're like John Wick, and I want to say they did a special on some of the Marvel movies and things like that. So they do old and new movies. But again, if you love action movies, you want to check out that podcast. You're talking about LPJ, the Sphinx, and then Hovercraft Joe. Interested in any of those guys, go ahead and hit them up on GameZillaMedia.com and check them out. And that's going to be it for that section, because those are my homies and I'm hollering at them. So yeah, I think this episode went a little bit longer than it normally does. I try to keep them around 20 minutes. I think we're going to be close to 30, maybe 35 minutes, and I'm tired and it's getting late. So let's just go ahead and take care of some business. If you like the episode, like I said, always share it. Leave some comments. You can do that on Anchor FM. You can find me on Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Chromecast, Spotify. You could also get direct web access at www.seanflack.com. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or emotional outbursts, again, a lot of my content is based upon influence of the followers, the subscribers, the people that like stuff. Like, I'm very interactive, and I'll talk about any topic that, again, the community that I'm trying to build is one that's based upon being parents. So I call it Dad's Life, but it's also dads and moms, and it's about joining together, um, doing the best we can about being parents, but then at the same time understanding that there needs to be a balance in order to keep us sane, in order for keep these babies safe. Because once we lose it, they gonna get their head chopped off. No joking there, but there isn't that many support groups out there for the dads. So that's what this is about. This is, I saw that and I was like, you know what? If there's not one, then I'm going to start one. But moms and dads are both, and it's not just about parenting. It's about being entertained. It's about understanding that life throws different things our way, and kids, there isn't really a handbook. So the best thing we could do is get together, form a community, and share our best practices, and that's what this show is about. That's what my dad life is about. So any questions, comments, or emotional outbursts, SeanFlack.com. Got links to Facebook, Twitter, the YouTube's there. You'll find the Mixer. You can join my Discord from there as well. And, hey, nothing yet, but my Patreon page is up. So you could definitely follow me on Patreon. There's nothing fleshed out for that just yet because I want to make sure that I'm creating something that is worth supporting. But there is a link there anyway. All right. So that's going to be it for this episode. If you have any questions, comments, emotional outbursts, as I always say, give me a holla at your homie. And until the next episode, peace.